All right, we'll call this special meeting of council to order. And the process will be very similar to our last regular meeting, where each time I read a resolution, I'll have to call for a mover and a seconder. And then we'll have discussion on the resolution and then move forward. So the agenda has 4 items on it. There's nothing else to add, Heather. That's all the agendas, or that's all the agenda items we'll be considering today?
Correct.
Okay. So item number 1 on the agenda is a resolution that reads as follows. That whereas the government of Saskatchewan and the city of Melfort recognize the investments in public infrastructure are fundamental to the quality of life of residents of Saskatchewan and necessary to ensure continued economic growth. And whereas the government of Saskatchewan has implemented the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program 2020, known as MEEP, to stimulate the economy and create employment opportunities, be it resolved that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to sign the Municipal Economic Enhancement Program 2020 funding agreement between the Government of Saskatchewan, Ministry of Government Relations, and the City of Melfort. Be it further resolved that the Council of the City of Melfort approve the submissions of the City of Melfort project plan as Schedule B to the MEEP funding agreement. So that's the resolution. Can I have a mover, please?
Glenn.
Glenn, and a seconder, Councillor Terry. Sorry, that's Councillor George and Councillor Terry.
Close enough.
Yeah, I shouldn't get that familiar though. Keep it official. All right, so questions or comments with respect to that resolution? First, I guess I'll say, City Manager, any comments from administration before we have any questions from council?
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't think so at this point in time. It's presented as circulated with the information package that will accompany this.
Okay. Any questions from council? Any comments? Okay. Maybe I'll just read the 5 items that pertain to Schedule B with respect to this funding agreement. So number 1 is walking trail rehabilitation, approximate cost of $256,000. Virtual City Hall, approximate cost of $23,000. And if I make a mistake on this, just correct me. Broadway Avenue North asphalt overlay from Bemister to McDonald with a cost of approximately $364,000. Water main replacement, North End Grote Drive, Hutchison to the 200 meters west, south of Grote Drive mid-block, and the cost of that is approximately $229,000. And Kerry Vicker Center backup power gen set, approximate cost of $80,000. So those are the 5 proposals that we're submitting to the MEEP program. So now I guess I'll ask, does council have any comments before we call for the vote on the resolution? All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Next item on the agenda is McDonald Avenue West land sale agreement. So the resolution reads that council approved the agreement for sale of land between the city of Melfort and Ben Hoosier, operating as Sask Steel, for the purchase of Lot 4, Block 115, Plan 102180990, 715 McDonald Avenue West, subject to the terms and conditions outlined in the agreement, and further that we rescind resolution 20-76 passed at the regular council meeting on May 4th, 2020. So I need a mover for that resolution, please. Councillor Phillips, seconder, Councillor Homans. Okay, questions or comments with respect to that resolution? Councillor Benson.
So there's no deposit been put on that property as of yet then?
City Manager?
Thanks. I'm going to refer the questions here to Director Lutz for this item.
Okay, Director Lutz.
Just a second. Sorry, guys. I guess I got to bring myself in here for you. I wasn't prepared for that.
Are you prepared now?
There we go. Sorry. So I just want to outline when we enter into negotiations with a property owner, often we take a deposit. So what's at question here isn't so much whether we've received a deposit on this, and I believe that we have a deposit on hand from this property owner. As you'll note, the document before you has been signed by him. I think it might be better for me to just back up a bit and acknowledge that council approved a land sale agreement at the last council meeting for the property of land, and what occurred, and the further information is in the community services meeting minutes, memo attached therein, that the document that had been provided to council was not the document that was intended to be signed with the property owner, and the language was different than what council approved. So we brought this document back amended to correct it. Namely, what occurred in there is council at a previous council meeting had approved a discretionary approval for this property owner to operate amongst a metal recycling and a salvage yard. The document that was presented to council at the last meeting did not include that in there. And it was an administrative error. We had brought you an earlier draft copy of an agreement, and therefore we couldn't authorize the mayor to sign the correct document because it had not been presented to council. So we're presenting it to you here today and rescinding the motion for the document that was circulated at the last council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
Oh, and also that's standard procedure, like 12 months to pay for it after?
Yeah, that was an incentive put in by council approximately a year ago when we reviewed our development incentives, was to offer that as an option.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions, comments? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute. Sorry, I just wanted to say I had left the room for a second just to double check on what the deposit had been. And yes, there has been a deposit applied.
Okay,
yep.
Thank you. So when I called for the vote, 7 people voted in favor, so I'll record that. So that's carried. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the Kinsman Spruce Haven lease agreement. So I have a resolution that reads as follows: that we authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute the agreement between the city of Melfort and the Melfort Kinsman Club for the lease of the former Chamber of Commerce building located in Spruce Haven Park for a 5-year term ending May 30th, 2025, in accordance with the terms and conditions outlined in the commercial lease agreement dated May 28th, 2020. I need a mover for that, please. Okay, Councillor Terry and Councillor Phillips. Okay, questions or comments from council? Councillor Terry.
When this was first being explored for the Kinsmen to take this over, I had heard discussion where they were willing to let that facility be used by other clubs. Is that correct?
City
That is
manager?
correct. Yes, that is correct. So both Director Lutz and I have had a few meetings with this group. I believe that's every intention of what they're looking at doing once the building is ready for that. Yes.
That's not in the contract with them. That's just something that they're willing to do.
Yeah, that's correct. Brent, did you have any comment to add there?
Yeah, they intend to use this as their kin lodge for their club and to make it available to the public. They intend to make an investment in the property, and it'll become a feature of the park there. The revenues that they recover off of that rental will hopefully help them in the operation costs of that building, as they'll be taking over the responsibility for those as well.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Very
Any
good,
other questions? All right, let's call for the vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Next up is the water fill station rate. So I have a resolution that reads that we approve an interim water rate of $4.59 per cubic meter for the Sask water fill station to be formalized in the City of Melfort Waterworks bylaw once the water fill station transfer agreement is executed by the City of Melfort and Sask Water. A mover, please. Councillor George and Councillor Benson. Questions, comments?
I guess, Your Worship, I can just comment and I'll maybe turn it over to Director Gilmore. This came up from a logistical, I guess, measure. Sask Water, their construction crews and stuff is working diligently to try and get this back up and running, as the one currently out at the Sask water treatment building is decommissioned. So we really felt bringing it to special council meeting here today was the right thing, as we need to get this up and running again. So I'll let maybe Director Gilmore speak to the other logistics of this.
Director Gilmore?
You'll have to unmute yourself, Gerald.
Sorry, guys. Can you hear me now?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to let Sandy speak to the rate itself, but as we all know, collaboratively, this will accomplish two goals. It will minimize the traffic out on our Spruce Haven Road by our recreation facilities, but more important, address our chlorine residual throughout our distribution system. The corner of Hamilton and Broadway is pretty much a perfect spot to put that, to pull the chlorine through our distribution system and actually improve the chlorine level on the west side of town. That does another thing. It actually lessens, some people, I think Director Danberg could probably say, you could probably smell the chlorine in some of our houses on the very east side of Melfort. So this will be operational wise a win-win for sure. Sandy, I'm going to let you speak to the rates. You're the one that potentially work those rates out. But if there's any questions as far as operational, it's going to benefit the city of Melfort. Potentially, Sask Water is looking at June 5th to the 10th. I think is more realistic to understand. It'll be June 10th before it'll be operational. We were prepared. We did the site preparation for the site, but we are not doing the mechanicals. So Sask Water contractors are presently working on site to complete that. So,
Hey, Madam Treasurer.
So with respect to the rate, We wanted to ensure that it was comparable to what we would charge our residents and commercial users. With our residential and commercial users, there's both a volumetric rate and a monthly fee, a fixed monthly fee. So we wanted to make sure that because this was just a volumetric amount or rate that we could charge, that we have both fees kind of incorporated so they're comparable. With our residential and commercial rate, it is $3.28 a cubic meter. But also if we wanted to look at somehow putting in a comparable rate for the fixed amount that our other users have, that's roughly about a 60-40 split, meaning that 60% is volumetric and 40% is a fixed rate. So we've put in a 40% increase to $4.59 a cubic meter, just to have them comparable.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Councillor Mitchell?
How does that compare to what they're currently paying at the fill station, at the current treatment plant?
I don't have exact numbers from the Sask Water. What we had a few months back was a range of in the area of $2.50 to $5 a cubic meter. So I'm going to assume it's around that $2.50 per cubic meter amount.
Anything further, Councillor Mitchell?
Well, I'm just trying to understand, I guess, from a cost perspective, the folks that are currently utilizing that service out there, if they're doing it around $2.50 per cubic meter, we're close to doubling, and I suspect there will be some feedback based off of that new rate. And I guess the second comment I would say is, a tandem farm truck right now with a, multiple 100-gallon tank in the back, that utilizing coin-op must be quite entertaining if they got to do it in toonies. So, yeah, it'll be good if we can move to a card lock system for those folks, or the regular users at least.
Yeah, that's going to be very inconvenient for sure. The one thing we wanted to avoid is having and it's good that Saskwater had worked with us. We don't want to have a very low rate and then find out, when we do have ownership that we would increase the rate substantially, and we would have, public feedback from that as well. So.
Your worship?
Yes.
Just a short comment. I did my very best when Saskwater was prepared to put a coin-operated one to go to electronic means. And of course, because we have no money in our capital 2020 budget to address that, I didn't have any control over the coin-operated. That was the old style. So next year you'll see that as part of the capital program to upgrade that, because I agree with Councillor Mitchell, that will certainly be unpopular for the bigger truck haulers.
All right. Good enough. Now, if I remember, Councillor Terry, did you have a comment?
No, Councillor Mitchell raised the concerns I had as well.
Okay. And Councillor George, did you have something?
I was just wondering how many gallons there was in a cubic meter.
Just a second, sorry. 220 gallons.
Thank you.
Councillor Benson.
Councillor Benson.
On it says temporary. How long is it going to be temporary, and do we know where the permanent one might be or not yet?
So from our perspective, I know Director Lutz, he's been trying his best to purchase land south of Hamilton Avenue. We purchased the CN land. CP land has been quite different. So we really had no choice on the timeline. We picked the north side. And you know, the more I look at that site and the distance from Broadway, I'm thinking if we could plant some trees around there, that very well might be the permanent site, because, you know, to cost that out capital wise to move it across the street doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. And it's back, and I think we could cosmetically make that fit. You know, Brent, have you got any words of wisdom for us, please?
I think our initial thought is that placing that on that corner, that, you know, it might obscure the view of the business that's located on that site. As we all know right now, there's currently no business operating there. But certainly, depending on what the future owner of the property directly west there, if it could be made something that's attractive and doesn't interfere with the use of that commercial property, it may very well work where it is. It's certainly convenient for access for the trucks. And of course, it wasn't our initial first choice site, but the site that we had in mind, we could not acquire the property in time to be able to accommodate opening this up this spring. So,
Okay, thank you.
Should be good accessibility there, and then you can test that new overlay on Broadway.
Okay, is there any other questions or comments from council? All right, let's call for the vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And the last resolution says that this meeting be adjourned. A mover, please, and a seconder, Councillor George and Councillor Homans. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Meeting